only way we could bring it up was we'll open the gates for a few seconds, leave a few clients in, and we'll shut it off. We'll let it stabilize, and we'll do that. And we did that for over 1.5 days before we brought Messenger up. We made a lot of big calls at that time, some of which was never to bring a service ever down. That was a big learning for us at Microsoft. We also made sure that all the clients did not immediately go after the service. If it did not get back in the service, it backed up arbitrarily a random time. Those of you who've done Ethernet have heard of CSMA CD, which is an automatic backup. So we basically used the same technique. We gave every messenger client which had gotten into the service a token that was like a pass, right? Which essentially said, okay, every time you don't have to go get a pass, if you had this pass, you can automatically get into the service, so that if a login service was not doing well, you could get in. So we came up with a lot of innovations at that time that basically brought Microsoft into the online services world. The most important thing that was a lesson, it was interesting to talk to Greg Bardros, who had done Gmail at that time as well, because Greg and I worked very closely about 3 years ago. And a lot of the learnings from our startup was what he was applying in Google at that time. Now Greg is at Facebook, by the way. And I was applying in Microsoft in about the same era. And the key lessons for us was, when you are building something at scale, and we have something like 500,000 servers in our data centers, on an average day, about 100 to 200 disks fail in our data centers. Google's a little bigger. Google has about 1 million servers in the data center, so everything is double. The main thing is you cannot do much about the idea of figuring out what is wrong and fixing it. All of that just does not exist. There are only 3 things you can do. You can either figure out what the problem is and fix it automatically, which is impossible, because if you had done it, you wouldn't have coded the problem that way. You can basically reboot the system and hope it fixes itself. Or you can re-image the system because it has gotten corrupted. If not, you can basically just turn a light on that says red. This machine is busted. A kid walks in, pulls out the machine, and puts another machine in, right? That's how all data centers now, whether run by Google, whether run by us, I think Yahoo's there. Facebook is getting there. Facebook will get there, and Amazon's getting there. So all these companies, because the scale is so big, automation and simplicity is the only way to solve problems when you're running stuff in the millions and millions of machines, because there is no simple way for you to fix anything at that point in time. And the other amazing lesson is, failure has to become your friend. You have to think about failure as something. It's not a question of whether it will happen. It's a question of when it is going to happen. And the more machines you have, probability says the likelihood of it happening just went up dramatically, right? So those were key lessons. I was lucky enough at that time to be awarded what is called the Outstanding Technical Award at Microsoft, which is the equivalent of Founders Award at Google. Google gives $1 million for the employee in question. Microsoft does the same thing. They give $1 million, but they don't give it to the employee. You give it to charities of your choice. So I was privileged enough to use that money to give away to a lot of charities at that point in time. With that, I'll probably talk about Bing and other things for a second. I'm going to ask Shekhar to help me with the trivia in a second after this. I was asked to come and work in ads at Microsoft. I said, what? Ads? Ads and I did not get along at all. I was not interested in doing that. But anyway, that's where the company needed me. I worked on search ads, display ads and search ads, and now I work in search as well. Those of you, how many of you have ever heard of Bing? Oh, I'm glad, thank you. We, of course, are a distant second. But if you've never tried Bing It On, try it. Hopefully, you'll get a view of whether we are doing well or not. If we're not doing well, at least it's a good lesson for us. So I work in Bing these days. I just wanted to do 2 quick summaries. I won't go through each and every one of those because I went through a random list of lesson summaries. But the few quick ones I'll touch on is, in school, you're learning to learn. The only thing constant is change, right? If you find your passion, you're lucky, because if you're not going to find your passion, work is going to become a chore. Innovation can come from anywhere, so the innovation is there in you as well, so don't lose faith and heart, and make sure you keep at it. Successful people can dive deep, so if you ever become successful, don't lose touch with your people and the company that you're running. And I won't go through the others because I've talked about it. I'm going to give you a few additional random tidbits, just pulled out so that it might or might not apply to you. A lot of you will be student leaders, and you could be probably, hope when you go out, you might be leaders in other areas. The one thing that people forget is leadership is a privilege most of the time. You are serving somebody, and it's not an entitlement. It's just disheartening when leaders feel that what they have is an entitlement program. And that's something that you should never forget. People like Mahatma Gandhi, George Washington, all of them stepped out of their leadership positions because they did not think that it was for them to be leaders forever. Right? The other interesting one is what you say is not as important as what was heard. Right? I might have said Bing. By the time the airwaves reach you, you might have heard it as Google, right? So when I say Bing it, you're going to say Google it, right? So, so it's, the most important thing is when you always assume that when you say something that people have heard it, and it's not always the case. And it's very, very important when you're working in teams, and it's especially important when you go to companies and you're working there. The way you speak, the way you do stuff might be very different, and what you think people have heard is probably not what was heard. And what you say for the first time, you can be guaranteed is almost going to be ignored and misunderstood. That's why when you talk about presentations, they say what you're going to say, then say it, and then again summarize what you're going to say. And the reason is repetition helps in a lot of ways. The other one that a lot of us miss, especially in group discussions, is listening is an art. It's 50% of the conversation is the listening part. It's especially important for those of you who are extroverts and you are in a team. It's important to figure out that there is another person in your team who's not talking and to draw them out. Because quite often the introverts do have things to say, but they don't say. And one of the arts of being, as you get into the workforce, is to draw people out and get their viewpoints as well, because quite often those people have a lot of great things to say. The last one on this slide should be a simple one. Hiring people better than yourself is the fastest way to build a great team, right? Because the average IQ of the team can only go up, it cannot go down. So, and it's very stunning the number of people who always are worried about people smarter than them. You should be seeking out people smarter than you more often than not. The last 3 or 4, ego is about the greatest enemy of a member or a leader. Accepting your mistake and then liberating yourself from it and learning from your mistakes and not repeating it is probably one of the best things that you can do. So, and quite often we get caught up in our egos and fail to accept that we screwed up. And you are going to screw up in the corporate world. It's totally okay to say, I've screwed up and accept it and go forward. Because the more defensive you are, the more a web you're going to weave, and the harder it's going to be for you to pull out of it. If you feel strongly about something, though in my case in .NET I stayed with it, there is a chance you could be wrong, right? So just keep that in mind. The other one is actually applicable in a lot of settings. The ability to give honest, hard, and constructive feedback is a rare and a valuable talent. It's very, very hard to tell somebody that and give them very hard feedback. That happens in every way, form, shape that you can think of. You will have to do that at times when you're working to your coworkers. If you ever become managers, you'll have to do that to your people and all of that kind of stuff. So that's something that is a talent that you should just watch and seek out. And the last one should be obvious. Very highly successful people will never feel on top of it. They have this sense of uneasiness at all time. Andy Grove wrote it as only the paranoid survive. And that is true for every founder of a company that you've met. They are always worried that a kid in a garage next door is going to come and wipe their company out tomorrow, right? And that's what keeps them going, and that's a good thing to have. Wow, what happened here? Okay, I'll conclude this with this before I run into the trivia by saying there are 3 things I think are important when you're working, when you're in a workforce, if you will. Focus on the impact you're going to have, because if it's either a business impact or a customer impact, that'll be more interesting than focusing on your career per se. Also leverage the people that you're working with. Quite often, people around you are extremely smart. I'm very lucky at Microsoft that almost most of the people I work with are much, much smarter than I am, and I always learn from them. And that is a privilege to be working with people like that. And don't forget to have fun. I mean, if you're having fun, it's always a good thing because you don't think of it as work. And I think the career will take care of itself. Quite often, when you get into the workforce, a lot of kids just get caught up on career. What's my promotion? What's my level? I would think that that is a side effect of all of the other things that you do. It's a side effect of the work you put in, the impact that you have, the things that you learn from the people you have. And if you're having fun, the career will fix itself. So with that, I'm going to just jump into the trivia. I have about 5 slides of questions. In each of these, it's saying the transition is taking time to play. I hope the transition works. Otherwise, the answers are going to show up. Okay, the first one is on Windows. By the way, Shekhar, if you can. So the way it's going to work is I'm going to ask you for answers. Whoever says the closest answer, and I'll let Shekhar make the call, is going to, he'll give out a T-shirt or a water bottle or whatever. Hopefully, it'll say Bing other than Microsoft. Anyway, so don't worry about what's it. So the first question on Windows is, how many Windows 7 licenses does Microsoft sell in some average time? And don't think of it as year or days, in say hours or minutes. How many, or whatever form in that period, how many licenses of Windows does Microsoft sell? Anyone? Just guesses is fine. Just shout out some answers. 3 to 5 what? Licenses per? You have to give a time period. $3 to $5 an hour?
No. 1,000 an hour.
What?
1,000 per hour.
1,000 per hour. Okay. Anyone else? Any other guesses? I'm going to give you, and then Shekhar has got to do the conversion math. And he doesn't know the answer, so he's going to convert. Huh? 500 per hour, is it? Well, I guess I'll show you the answer. We sell about 7 licenses every second. So somebody can do the multiplication. What's that?
1,008 hours will be
Closer, yeah. So Shekhar, if you can just...
closer, but
Off by a lot, but what it tells you is all you guys should just be guessing, right? Because the closest guy, even if he's off by a factor, he's now going to get a T-shirt because none of you even dare to guess. So
the correct answer is closer to 25,000 an hour. Since nobody guessed, the guy that said 1,000 an hour is closer.
So yeah, just give him a T-shirt, please. Just throw it. It's a Bing T-shirt. Okay, so just... Okay, the next one, oh my God, I hope again I had to wait to make sure the transition doesn't go through. The next one is on Office. The same question on Office. What's your guess on Office? Now this got to be easier, right? 500 what? 500 per hour, okay? Okay. 5,000 per hour, 50,000 per hour.
30,000 per hour.
Okay, now we have to have an honor system, right?